Morning, everyone. Welcome to Interview Wednesday. I hope you're all having a really wonderful morning. So, as you know or may not know, I'm Jessica Mcilveen from Kids Yoga Therapy, and I've been doing interviews for the past couple of months now. So I'm really surprised that I'm keeping it going, which I'm very proud. So I'm interviewing really extraordinary humans, really extraordinary adults that have amazing stories to share. Through challenges, they've really been able to, choose a path of empowerment. And for that very reason, I am interviewing a woman by the name of Erin Ashley today. For those of you who live in the Sunshine Coast or around, you may have heard of her. So I'm going to add her to the call. And if you're jumping on, make sure that you wave, say hello, let us know. And if you have any questions along the way, make sure that you ask them and let us know. Hello, Erin.
Hi Jess, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Look, we're both wearing red today.
Oh gosh, this happened the other week when I was interviewing Zoe. We were wearing nearly the same top. Well, it's meant to be. Look at us.
Meant to be. Yeah, grounded and powerful red.
Exactly, exactly. So why don't you share with everybody, maybe just introduce yourself for those who that don't know you just yet.
Sure. Hi everybody, I'm Erin Ashley, and I guess what my main roles in life are is as a mindfulness yoga and meditation teacher. I'm also a mum of three, happily married, live here on the Sunshine Coast. I'm just at a local park today, actually. It's beautiful, a little bit windy though, but glorious
Yeah.
30-degree day. And together, my husband and I run Success International, which is really a way for us to help to empower people around the world. We love the mission of creating global abundance through love and empowerment. And so my work as a mindfulness coach and yoga teacher and meditation teacher, these are just some really powerful tools to help people have a happier and more empowered life.
Yeah, thanks for that, Erin. And I guess generally we choose these paths based on past experiences in our lives. So was there a time in your life that you really needed to rely on something outside of yourself? I know you have a quite a challenging and traumatic event that did occur for you quite a number of years ago.
Yeah, so back in 2009, I was again happily married to somebody different, and we had two children together, and me and my husband at the time, Nico. We were living on the Sunshine Coast. Two beautiful, happy, healthy daughters, nearly 4 years old, and 4 months old at this stage. And it was a day like any other. We were living our dream life. We're living in Caloundra on the Sunshine Coast, walking distance to the beach. In fact, this particular morning, we had gone for a walk along the beach. I even remember taking his Polaroid glasses and putting them on to look through the water. It was the beginning of whale watching season, and I'm scanning for the whales. Just living this really present, wondrous life. And we head up to the local shopping mall, and we're walking through camera malfunction. We're walking through the local shopping mall, and we're about to walk into a store, and all of a sudden I feel this really heavy hand on my shoulder, and I'm 1 minute walking and talking with the love of my life who's carrying our 4-month-old baby, and the next minute he's dropping to the ground. And there were two first aiders straight on the scene at that time, who started working on him straight away because it became apparent that he wasn't breathing properly. 8 minutes later, paramedics arrived, got the defibrillator out, we're working on him. We got into the ambulance, we were heading back to the hospital. This whole time I'm thinking, oh, we're in good hands. We're in the hands of the professionals. The paramedics are here. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to be in even better hands when we get back to the hospital. Let's just get you sorted, Nico, continue on with our day. This is what's processing through my mind. And so I get to the hospital, and after about half an hour, they call me into a room and tell me that Nico has died. And he's just laying there on, the hospital bed, motionless. And a really surreal moment where I felt like everything that I knew in life and everything that I had planned and hoped for just got pulled out from underneath me. And before this event happened, I had a practice of yoga. I'd been practicing yoga since my uni days in my early 20s, and mindfulness really underpins yoga practice, about being curious and non-judgmental and in the present moment and practicing living the now. And while I had this announcement made to me that my husband had just died, it was the last thing on my mind to, okay, a change has happened, an event's happened, let me tap into my mindfulness resources. So I went into I guess you'd call it the stress response mode, which for me was freeze. Some people go into the fight, the please mode. I went into the freeze mode. So this all happened out of the blue. He was 35, fit and healthy. We just had, 2 young kids and had a whole future ahead of us. And then he just drops dead. So we think maybe it's random because there were no signs, but a heart attack. Further to autopsy, after about 11 days of working out what the cause of death was, the medical professionals couldn't determine a cause of death. After a year of looking through genetic testing and testing out our 2 girls, and his brothers back home in Argentina, all his family were over the other side of the world, I had to learn a whole new range of Spanish medical terms to communicate what had just happened. No cause of death determined. So how does someone who is fit and healthy, is able to make babies, healthy in that sense, happy in life, just go from walking and talking 1 minute and dropping dead the next? It took me to a place of disbelief, went through all the grief emotions, and finally came out with an acceptance, which is a really big principle that underpins mindfulness. And an acceptance that I didn't need to know, and an acceptance and knowing and trust that this was his destiny, and I could either be defined by this event and look at the rest of my life through the filter of my husband died, and I could lead with that. That could be my story. I can't do this because I'm a single mum. Oh, did you know my husband died? I really in the beginning wanted to lead with it. I'd go down to the local park and see dads with their kids and just feel like that was so unfair. Yeah. Yet, with young children, the milestones and life just, evolves so quickly. And so these 2 beautiful gifts of my daughters really helped to keep me in the present moment and buy me back present moment opportunities, because it really was like a trauma that got set in at that moment when they told me that my husband had died. First, when he dropped to the ground, and then the moment when they told me he died. It was replaying through my head like a broken record, and I couldn't sleep. It was like this story just replayed. But my baby would get new teeth. Lucia would have a dance concert at kindergarten. I started to buy back real time moments through the eyes of my daughters, and pretty soon after 2, within a couple of months, I started to see a mindfulness coach. She's a psychologist as well, and she just started encouraging me to buy back those real time moments. Like, as traumatic as this was and unfair and however you want to frame it, it happened back then. You don't even need to know how he died. Like, what's happening now? Notice the chair you're sitting in and how your feet feel on the ground, and notice your breath in and out. And all of a sudden I could feel this heavy grief constriction just lifting a little, like this window opening of expansion and space. And so over a period of months, I really started to put this into practice and read every book I could on mindfulness, and really discovered the healing benefits of it through that practice, and was able to then, really manage the grief of my daughters. I continue to do so today using mindfulness. because
Yeah.
of that event. So it's really been a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you mentioned in the My Weekly Preview article, Erin, was that your belief in mindfulness and your yoga practice and your meditation practice was really tested during this time. Your faith in that, and so really tested. So I suppose for you, was there a moment? Do you remember one moment where you just realised, no, this really is the way for me? Because you're right, you could have gone into those disempowering thoughts, as you've mentioned. So was there a special moment for
Mm.
you when you decided, no, I'm choosing the empowering part for myself?
Do you know, I think it was when I first went back into my practice of yoga. So even before I started going back onto the mat and moving my body, I was already putting into place some mindfulness strategies. But it was really once I started moving my body again, which really is the outermost layer of us, to even start delving into what's happening in the mind and emotions. The tears just started pouring out every time I would move my body. So it really helped me to transition out of that shock, freeze, stress response mode, and starting to free some of that up by moving my body. And there was a beautiful teacher, Cindy, in Caloundra at the time on the main street there that I used to go to her studio and practice, and always apologise for the wet eye pillow at the end of the class.
I'm sure she found it to be a privilege, actually, that she was able to guide you through that process and really help you to release those emotions.
I think so. And,
Yeah.
the benefit of that yoga practice, not just the mindfulness theory by itself, but moving the body, getting to know the breath again, it helped me just to be in better relationship with myself again. And it helped me to start to look at, well, what relationship do I have to this event now? I have a choice as to what relationship I choose to have about it. I can choose a disempowering one or an empowering one. There's really only two paths, one of love, one of fear. And, the choice was obvious for me. I think,
Yeah.
I've always been generally a positive person, yet because of that resilience that I built up through my yoga and mindfulness practice previously, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. And so what were once you started to connect back with your yoga practice and really start releasing all of these, all grief and loss and all of those really big emotions, what impacts did you start seeing in your daily life? Because there would have been big impacts as a result of this event for you. So what did you start seeing change?
I just didn't, I started to feel like there really was nothing to worry about, and like everything was going to turn out just fine. So, for example, finances at that particular time could have been a major source of concern for me. As a single mum, I'm on maternity leave. I'm still getting a wage off maternity leave, and then I have to go back to work and figure out the care for my daughters. And so there was a lot to be concerned about, yet with the practice of mindfulness, it just changed my relationship to all of those worries. With the practice of yoga, it helped me to be aware of how I was thinking and feeling so that I could then manage how I was thinking and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And because I kept myself through that practice, and by practice, I mean an everyday practice in terms of perspective, where I would start seeing the lessons and the gifts in what had happened, perspective. And then a formal practice of meditation as well, even just a few minutes at a time. Uh, that helped me just to stay consistent and to keep moving forward with in a way that helped me to design what I did with each day, rather than be led by others' agendas or thoughts that would creep in, or the replaying of Nico dying. I just didn't, I was the guardian at the gate of my own mind again, and I was able to understand which thoughts to pay attention to and which ones I could just let go.
Yeah, how beautiful. It's really beautiful to hear. And so, you know, now your girls are a lot older. And so for you and them and what they've gone through, how have you implemented this practice with them, and how does it affect them?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's an ongoing journey. I mean, I had the communication doors wide open from the moment the event happened. I had my 4-year-old involved in the funeral planning and, you know, just really, you know, wanted to make sure that they weren't going to bottle everything up. And my 4-year-old daughter was, Nico was a stay-at-home dad with her while I worked, and then I came off work while I was on maternity leave. So they had a really close relationship. And so helping her at the time, I mean, because it was every night that she would be crying, going to bed, why did this happen? Why me? And me, you know, that really pulled at my own strings and things I was going through about it, yet I really wanted to help her. And looking back on that time, what she did for me was she helped me to keep everything open in terms of looking at every emotion that I was facing and everything that I was going through, because she would demonstrate first that it was okay to have these emotions and to fully express them, and that that's not wrong. So as the years have gone by, you know, the girls go through different stages with it. It's an event that's still really current for them. Now I'm remarried to my amazing husband, Erin Ashley, and we're a blended family. Erin came in with a son of his own as well. Yet it doesn't mean that the girls still don't miss having their biological father, you know, and because it happened to, sorry about that, because it happened to them when they were so young, they have really well, Sasha, who was just 4 months old at the time, her memories, I'm guessing, come through photos and videos that we watch from time to time. But for Lucia, she has some strong memories of Nico still. So one great tip that I've learned recently from you, Jess, is to continue holding that space for them when they are going through an emotional response about what is coming up for them. So even though I've had all these years of practice of mindfulness and yoga, you know, there's days when I'm off track like anybody else. And my daughter Sasha was starting to bring up the story of her dad dying. She's 9 now, but she was bringing up the story of her dad dying whenever anything would go wrong. You know, if something happened at school, an issue with a friend, all of a sudden it would turn into the story about how her dad died and life's unfair and it's very sad. Or if she hurt her knee, it would end up in the story of how Papa died. And I started to try to reframe this instantly for her. Well, what's great about this happening? You know, what are the lessons? What are the gifts? And she was just resisting, like, no, you're not listening to me. And I'm saying, but there's a different way to look at it. You know, you can redesign your thoughts around it. And it just wasn't flying with her. And so I had a chat with you, Jess, and I told you what was happening with Sasha, and you said she just wants to be heard in that moment. Like, she's not in her frontal lobe and able to reason and rationalize when she's in that moment. So just listen to her and get her to know how her body is feeling in that moment and what emotions she's experiencing, and then she's going to come into a space where you can come in with some strategies perhaps around it. And that has been so helpful. A great reminder. Thank you.
So great to hear. So wonderful when, you know, you share something and it really works, because it's so different for everybody. So that's just the greatest thing to hear for me. So that's really wonderful. And do they enjoy doing yoga and meditation and mindfulness with you, Erin? Is that a big part of their lives now?
It's on and off with them. So I went on to become a yoga teacher after I'd experienced that, you know, how healing the getting back on the mat practice was. Went on to become a yoga teacher. And so from a very young age, Sasha just being 1 and Lucia would, you know, be nearly 5 by this stage, I was teaching down at Moffat Beach on the Sunshine Coast, 6 a.m. classes on a Friday. They'd be there with me every Friday. I'd have Sasha on my hip, So they've grown up with yoga in their lives. They've come to, things of mine over the years, but they kind of pick and choose. I'm taking them to school in the morning, and if we're talking about an issue and I come out with some yoga philosophy, often they'll say, "Mum, that's enough of the yoga philosophy. We don't want to hear it." But I feel like I'm planting the seeds, and it's all going to come out the other end of the teenage years just fine.
That's right. That's right. It could either be yoga philosophy, or it could be, I don't know, it could be legal stuff, it could be doctor stuff, whatever parents do, right? The kids always get sick of. So, yeah. At least
it's very embarrassing. Very embarrassing.
Yeah, that's right. Even though you're incredible to so many people, Mum, you're just embarrassing. You need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mum to them.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So for you, Erin, as you know, so I work with children that have experienced trauma. A lot of them do have PTSD, a lot of different special needs and sensory stuff. So, sometimes parents can get a little bit concerned about going down the path that's non-medical. That just is really working with the body as an intervention and as a therapy. So for you, what would be maybe some advice or some words to those parents that don't really know which direction to go into?
Yeah, I mean, the path I chose to take was to go to, effectively a mindfulness coach who she had also specialized in working with children with trauma as well, Jess. And I worked with her and at times asked her, should I bring the children in? Should I bring the children in? But she was great at really empowering me to implement strategies with the children. And she said, only if you feel like it's something you can't handle, that, you would then bring them in, and we'll all work through stuff together. And I really love that approach. And I know it's what you do too, is that you really empower the parents because you want to give them, long-lasting tools to use. But it takes time to really get to know and understand that these strategies work without any other kind of medical intervention, that really managing how you think and feel and understanding that that's really closely related to what you're doing with your body and your breath is key to changing your relationship with trauma. Like, there's no going back and getting rid of what's happened or the traumatic event, but there is possibility in changing your relationship with it. And the work you're doing is amazing. It's exactly what has helped me to go on to live a happy and empowered life, to be able to find love again and to trust in that, to trust that my next husband's not just going to drop dead like that, because now I know that that's a possibility, to help my children become the happy kids, going so well at school and in all their friendships and doing so well in life. It's all come back from that person that I worked with in mindfulness and a yoga practice.
That's great words of wisdom, of course. And as a mum, a lot of the mums I speak to are they've got children with really complex needs, their own worlds are really all-consuming, it's stressful, they're trying to meet the needs of all of their children, and often theirs get ignored or forgotten about. So, and anxiety is a really big issue for these mums, but a lot of children. But for the mums that are watching, what's your go-to or a really great tip that they could possibly do for maybe a minute, something just to really help calm their bodies and their minds and bring them back to the present moment?
Notice your breath, like wherever you are, whether there's other people around. It's nothing that you need to bring with you. You've always got it with you. It doesn't cost anything. And it's not so much about noticing the breath, but noticing the noticing of the breath, if you know what I mean. So what that does, I mean, neurologically, is it just helps to change the pathways from that emotion of overwhelm. It's like a quick switch, a quick change in focus. Grab it for the few seconds that you can, and then build up from there. That was a real game changer for me. Just being able to notice the breath. And sometimes we can be in such a state of overwhelm that even that feels, hard to access, to even remember to notice the breath. Put up reminders around. Teach your kids this strategy so that then they start to hold you accountable as well. When they see that you're going into overwhelm, I get this coming back at me very regularly. Mum, notice your breath. Oh, good. And you have to be able to accept that, because it's awesome. Your kids are your teachers here too. So that would be my one key strategy.
And that's perfect. That's perfect. And so before
the second one, can I add two?
Yeah.
Can I add a second one? Is get support. Get support. I was very lucky enough to have family support, very lucky enough to have the insight to reach out to a mindfulness and yoga professional. Get support. You don't have to do this by yourself.
No, not at all. That's a very important second key. So thank you. Is there anything else before we wrap up, Erin, that you feel like you want to share, or anything that you would like to explain with people watching?
Oh, look, if this has resonated with you at all, then I encourage you to get into contact with Jess. And if there's any specific questions for me, you can feed them through Jess. I would just recommend starting the conversation. If this has resonated with you, then, reach out and just ask the question. That's it.
Yeah, perfect. And please, put questions in, and Erin and I will answer. I do have a workshop coming up on the 8th of December in Brisbane and the 15th of December in Sunshine Coast. So all details are on the events page on my Facebook page, Kids Yoga Therapy. And any other information you need, please let us know. But I really appreciate you coming and speaking with me, Erin. And there's a lot of beautiful lessons to be learnt from your story. So thank you so much. I know a lot of people will get a beautiful message out of your story.
Great, absolute pleasure. Really happy to be here, Jess. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day, Erin.
You too.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.